shared with you?
I do.
Cool.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to begin.
Right on.
They are joining. Hi, Kesha. Hi, Hannah Banana. Thank you for joining us again. Welcome back. There she is.
Hey.
There you are.
Oh, yeah.
So, welcome to the workshop. It is about stress management, and today I have Miss Carolyn. And just to reiterate about Miss Carolyn, she is a life coach. She runs her own professional life coach profession, and her main expertise is to shift the mindset to understand the power of positive thinking and a healthy living style. And she helps clients get clear on what they are and what they stand by and what they need on the daily for a healthier and happier, prosperous life. And today she'll be talking about stress management. And I'll give it to you now, Miss Carolyn.
All right. Thanks, Emery. So my name is Carolyn Mall, and I not only am I a professional life coach, because that is just what has evolved over all of the years of my coaching, but I also have a master's degree in holistic nutrition. I've been a personal trainer. I've competed in a lot of sports for the past 2 decades. And so today I wanted to actually talk a little bit about the actual physiological, I'm going to switch my screen around, the physiological aspect of stress. So what happens during the stress response is essentially the same biological storm of events, right, for everybody. And there are so many health problems that are directly related to how much stress we're experiencing. So I have my little notes in front of me so I can stay on track, but everything from heart disease. So it's interesting, like heart disease and stress actually forces your body's pupils to dilate. It constricts your blood vessels. It makes your heart speed up, right? There's all of these actual physiological things that happen during the stress response that affect your organs, right, inside of your body. And so this is one of the main reasons that we actually really want to get a handle on how we are feeling, like how we're responding to stressful situations, because it really does make a difference. It really, really does affect your physical health. So heart disease is one of the main problems that comes from being stressed all the time. Obesity is another one. And that's one of the key topics that I want to key in on today, because again, like with my background in nutrition and everything, I talk to people all the time about how, they're like, oh, I have belly fat, I have cortisol fat. And that's why I want to talk a little bit about today. But also things like asthma. Asthma is directly related to stress. Again, it comes from vasodilation. There's these things that happen in your body which constrict your airways when you're stressed. Diabetes, right? That's going to be linked into our obesity conversation. Things like headaches, depression, GI problems, things that we all already associate with stress. But also Alzheimer's too. Like that is something that people are finding has a direct correlation to how stress, to your stress level. So not to, go on and on about negative statistics, but it's like 75 to 90% of all doctors' visits are somehow stress related. So isn't that interesting? Like no matter what it is that you're showing up for, 75 to 90% of doctors' visits have some stress correlation. So let's talk about that for a second, right? So let's talk about what is happening in your body when you experience stress. And when when we were evolving as a human species, we didn't have the kind of stress that we do now, right? When we were evolving as humans, like we went through periods of famine, through periods of drought, we were chased by wild animals, you know what I mean? Like there was actual physical fight or flight responses that we needed to have. We are still the same people, except that now we experience stress in a much more like cerebral way, right? So you're sitting in the office and you're on a really stressful call or on a stressful, in a stressful meeting, something like this. And you're sitting there, and when you feel stressed, when you feel threatened at all, when you feel angry at all, like when that constriction comes up, what happens is your brain sends these hormones into your bloodstream. They are cortisol, norepinephrine, and adrenaline. And the adrenaline part, again, like makes your pupils dilate, makes your heart beat faster. They all serve to shunt blood away from your midsection to your limbs, because your body is used to having to respond physically to a stressful response. So cortisol is actually one of these stress hormones that gets released when you experience that kind of like fear or that stressful response, whatever it is, but you're still sitting there in the office, right? Like you're still sitting in a chair. And so what happens, cortisol, I think this is interesting, it actually serves to, well, we all have stored energy in our cells and in our muscles, right? So like it's called glycogen. So glycogen is stored in your muscles so that it's there when you're ready to exercise. It's there when you're ready to move and groove. That is how your body actually fuels itself, through glycogen. And that's actually too, like why people say after a workout, like eat within 35, 40 minutes of a workout, because you want to replenish glycogen stores. That's the nutritional science. That's why people drink their energy drinks and the protein stuff, because they're trying to replenish glycogen stores used during a workout. Okay, that was a side note. But so you're still sitting there. Cortisol is flowing through your bloodstream, and it is releasing glycogen, which is glucose, right? Which is an energy. It's like a sugar molecule into your bloodstream, because your body thinks it's going to have to run. It's going to have to fight. It's going to have to do something, but you're still sitting there. And so what happens then is you have elevated blood sugar levels. They're your own, but your blood sugar levels get elevated. And then your brain says like, wow, this is crazy. We have elevated blood sugar levels. We need homeostasis. Hey, pancreas, we need insulin. So then your pancreas releases insulin to lower your blood sugar levels once again. You're still sitting there. And so what happens is, this is the time where people start to get hungry. They're like looking around for the candy dish in the office, because then all of a sudden you have low blood sugar and you're like, well, this is crazy. Like I haven't done anything. Why am I so hungry? But you're not crazy. Like your body just went on this huge roller coaster ride. And so then you reach for the candies or the chips or the something to again, bring the blood sugar level back up. And then your brain's like, oh, pancreas, we need more insulin. And the cycle just continues. And this is how diabetes is also related into the stress response, right? Because when you're continually raising and lowering your insulin levels based on cortisol, and then the snacking and the eating that comes from that, after your pancreas is basically emitting insulin all day long in a chronic fashion, you become insulin resistant, right? And then you go to the doctor and you're like, oh, your blood sugar levels are high. And then after a while, your cells just refuse to deal with insulin anymore. And then you are diabetic. And what's interesting is that, so the cortisol thing happens, the glycogen is released, then you're eating more food typically, or that insulin is just there to mop up what has been released into your bloodstream. But there gets to a point where your cells are saturated. Like your cells don't actually need any more sugar. They don't need any more energy. Like the party is full. there's a line out the door and around the corner, and the bouncer's like, you're not coming in. So at that point, you have elevated blood sugar levels in your bloodstream. So the only way to deal with that at that point is for your liver to take over. And in a process called lipogenesis, which is a very fancy word that I love to say, lipogenesis turns extra energy, extra blood sugar into fat. And yeah, ooh, right. and typically stores it around your midsection. And that is why, like when you have a biometric screening test or you go to the doctor, they take a waist circumference measurement. That's also a measure of how healthy you are, because you do not want a bunch of fat hanging around your organs, right? That's called visceral fat. And it's the same like when you read magazine articles and they're like apple fat versus pear fat, you know, like if you've got a big round butt versus like a big round tummy. And so the apple fat is the bad fat, right? So like we don't want fat around our organs, but that is where our liver places it just because it's close in proximity. So that is actually like the physiology of the stress response in a nutshell. It comes down to cortisol and insulin responses. It comes down to being able to, your body's always searching for homeostasis, and stress, it creates this wild roller coaster ride of changes within your body. So now that we understand that, I'm going to go back to my little sheet here. So there's actually 4 kinds of stress. So the first kind is actually a beneficial kind of stress. It's called eustress. And eustress is like when you ride a roller coaster, or when you're actually doing a workout, or like you're having something exciting is happening, and it's very short term. It's like you're running a race, you're having sex, you're doing something that's like wild and crazy and fun, but it's short. And so you have all of these hormones and emotions and stuff going on, but it's short-lived. And that's actually a beneficial type of stress. It's why people exercise for like an hour, not for like 10 days in a row. Acute stress, on the other hand, that's the second kind. Acute stress is when you have like a deadline. Acute stress is feeling anxiety or feeling stress over something, but you know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a deadline, it will get fulfilled, but there's tension along the way, but there is an end. Acute. The third kind is called episodic acute stress. And the best way I found to describe this is like the drama queen stress, right? So you definitely know people who are always running late. They don't know where their keys are. They lost their purse. They're flying by the seat of their pants. They just got into a car accident, all the drama, all the time. Oh, it's exhausting. You know what I mean? These are the people whose energy just drains us, but they run their lives like that. It's not healthy. And the last type of stress is called chronic stress. And chronic stress is really the type that does cause disease over the long term. And chronic stress is like waking up day after day, morning after morning, facing something that you feel like is insurmountable. So this might be like living with a parent who is ill. This may be, having a child who is ill. This may be you're in a abusive relationship. You know what I mean? Like there's maybe you're in the middle of a pandemic. Who knows? We have to laugh at this. But chronic stress is the type where like you don't want to get out of bed in the morning. Like you feel it day in and day out, and it weighs on you, and you can't seem to find a solution. So what can we do? So I actually, this is something that I did not make up. This is directly from like the Mayo Clinic website. There's so much real research on this. I just like to share it with people. There's actually a series of actions that you can take when you are feeling stressed. And so like say you have a stressful situation and you're not quite sure what to do, but it's not working. the first A of the 4 A's is to avoid that stressor. And that might seem like duh, but really there's often a solution. So like if your morning commute totally stresses you out and you just dread getting in the car and you're like having donuts and coffee on it's everything, you can usually find a different route to take. You can maybe start to carpool, you can take the bus, you can take the train, you can find another way to avoid that morning commute. Maybe it's a coworker, like maybe you work with someone who just rubs you the wrong way. They are obnoxious, they're ignorant, they're whatever you're going to call them. Maybe you just need to avoid their path. You know what I mean? Like, you know, when they're going to go get coffee, don't do it then. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to go in the bathroom at the same time. Avoid. And to whatever extent you can, and even if it is avoiding, I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyhow, avoiding family members who are toxic. There are some people who they're not happy people. They're angry people, and the episodic acute drama queen people. And sometimes it's just simply not healthy to engage with those people. And sometimes you have to avoid them for your own health. So number 1 is avoid. Number 2 is to alter your reaction, is to alter the way that you respond to that. Now we're thinking, right? So now maybe we have to alter the way that we communicate with that person. And it's up to us to make sure that we have basically like healthy boundaries in place, right? So you can respectfully ask other people to change their behavior as long as you are willing to do so also. You can communicate your feelings openly. Another altering situation is to manage your time better. I mean, if you are always running late and it is always causing you stress and everyone else around you to be stressed, you can learn better time management skills. And the other thing to think too is to state your limits in advance. So like a perfect example of this personally is my mom. Like, I, for a long time, would not answer the phone when she called because I knew I was going to be on there for an hour, and I don't want to do that, right? I don't have the time to do that sometimes. And so I learned to say, hi, I only have 5 minutes right now. Is it important? Because if it's not, let me call you back at such and such a time. And that way I'm not being disrespectful. I'm acknowledging what's happening, but I'm also placing a boundary on time. Like, I got 5 minutes, but that's all I got right now. And sometimes she can't even deal with that. So then we just have to, make new boundaries. So the third A is to adapt. So if you can't avoid it and you're having a hard time altering the situation, you're going to have to somehow adapt to the situation. And sometimes that involves adjusting your standards. And I do not mean lowering your standards. I mean that sometimes, is it really that important to have a homemade meal every single night? Or can you have a box of mac and cheese and the kids aren't going to die? Like, is it that important to have everything perfect in your house? Sometimes it's adjusting your standards to lower that aspect of perfectionism and expectations of yourself and of others. So sometimes we have to understand that people are doing the best they can with what they have. And even if that's not ideal, you have to understand that is their standard, and that's none of your business. So you can practice thought stopping, right? So like when you start to go off onto that story about how this is so bad, hang on for a second, because sometimes things just are what they are, and they're neither good nor bad unless you tell them that they are. So like, I always bring up A Course in Miracles because it's helped me so much, but one of the tenets of that is that nothing has any meaning except that which you give to it. So things aren't inherently good or bad. It's how we respond to it. So like, you and I could be sitting at a table and there can be a glass of wine on the table. And for you, maybe you've been in AA for years, maybe you grew up with alcoholics, maybe that means something really, really negative and scary to you. And for me, maybe I've been going to sommelier school and this is like an art piece and I'm traveling to it. Like, we see the same glass of wine, but our response to it emotionally is significantly different. Every person on the planet is having the same thing happen. We see things through our lens and think that that's reality. And it is for us, but it's not for everybody else. So sometimes you have to just stop what you're thinking, realize that nothing is good or bad unless we call it that, and make a different choice. So this is like reframing the issue, right? So how can I reframe this into seeing it? It's not a challenge anymore. It's an opportunity for growth. This is not bad anymore. It's simply something that exists, which I need to reframe in my mind as either neutral or somehow positive. You can adopt a mantra. Like sometimes when we start to like spiral in our minds, the best thing to do is like adopt a mantra where you say something positive, a short positive statement over and over and over. This is the same thing we talked about too, about practicing gratitude. Like you can't be grateful and hateful at the same time. It's just impossible. Like we can only feel one thing at a time. And our feelings all stem from our thoughts. So we have to manage up here. It's like looking at the big picture. Sometimes it's pulling back and looking at the big picture and seeing if what you're upset about is even going to matter. Like in 5 years from now, is this even going to matter? So if you can't avoid it and you can't alter it and you're having a really hard time adapting to it, the last A of the 4 is to accept. And when you finally get to this acceptance of what is peace, in my experience, acceptance is intricately linked to forgiveness. And you can't have one without the other. And sometimes that means forgiving yourself. Sometimes it means forgiving someone else. Sometimes it means forgiving God. Sometimes it means forgiving your neighbor. Sometimes, you know, it starts with forgiveness and then it moves on from there. And, you know, acceptance of what is something I think like Eckhart Tolle writes about so well, because he always talks about the fact that the past no longer exists. Like you can't go back there. And the present or the future hasn't happened. Like you can fantasize it all you want and you can regret the past all you want, but the only thing that actually exists is this present moment right now. And you can argue with that all you want, but it's actually true. Like in the space-time continuum, we're pretty much right here, right now. Breathing this breath, I'm saying this word. I cannot redo the past. I can learn from my mistakes. I can talk to someone about it. I can journal about it. I can somehow find solace in the fact that it has made me a stronger person, but I can't go back, nor can I fast forward. So there's a lot of things I want to do. There's a lot of things I want to have happen. There's anxiety about how it's all going to work. And none of that is my business. My business is right here, right now, doing this, saying this, being present with you. That's my job. So acceptance of what is really like, to me, it's so much of the basis of happiness, you know, because when you can know that you're doing the best that you can every day, you are showing up as your best self, you are not hurting anyone on purpose, you are managing your relationships well, you're managing your finances well, you're staying healthy, you're managing your stress, like, then you can sit back and accept what is right now as something that is perfect. And this is one of my mantras I'll share with you. It's, I am so certain of the eventual outcome that I can afford to wait without anxiety. I'm so certain that my desired outcome is going to occur, that I can afford to wait without anxiety. I just maybe have to stay busy. So yes, we can learn from our mistakes, and yes, we can practice communication, and we can go to therapy, and we can avoid stressful people, and we can do all the things, but there's also really, really simple things that we can do right now. And the first one, so I have like 4 little tips here I think I put on my thing. Yeah. So whenever you're feeling stressed, the first thing to do is just simply slow down your breathing. Take a deep breath, in and out through your nose, like relax your shoulders a little bit. So many people, so I teach yoga. I've taught yoga for a really long time. I've practiced yoga for 25 years now. And a lot of what yoga is learning to manage your breath and work through some harder things, slowly breathing, right? And to keep your stress level down. Because what happens is, and again, this is interesting to me, like people chest breathe all the time, and they use these muscles. They're called your SCM muscles, your sternocleidomastoid muscles. You're supposed to use your diaphragm, right? There's this big muscle underneath your lungs, which presses up to empty the lungs and then lowers down to expand the lungs so you can take a great big deep breath in. That muscle is supposed to work 24/7. Like that's what it's built for. These muscles are not supposed to be working 24/7. They serve to pull your collarbone up, and so you can like get a breath, but that's that shallow breathing thing. And when we do this all the time, our body thinks we're hyperventilating. So because when you're hyperventilating, you go, like when you're having an anxiety attack, that's hyperventilating. And so that sends a signal to your body that you are not safe. Like that is high anxiety, that is fear, that is running for your life from the pack of wolves. So managing your breath and thinking about relaxing your neck, relaxing these muscles, breathing in through your diaphragm, it automatically lowers your heart rate, lowers your stress level. There's actually something called nitric oxide, which gets produced in your sinuses. I know it sounds bad, but it's actually a relaxation hormone. So when you breathe in and out through your nose and you fill your sinuses and you breathe slowly, more nitric oxide is produced within your body, which also helps to lower your stress level, all natural. And so the second thing, okay, so you've slowed your breathing down and then you're like, okay, what is going on right now? Because it's the right now piece. Like sometimes we get all worked up, but what is happening in the present moment? Come back to the present moment, focus on the present. Like what is actually happening right here and right now? And most of the time it's not all that horrible. Most of the time when you can actually just like parcel it down, you're like, okay, I can see like the 1 or 2 action items that I need to do right now. Just one thing at a time, one thing at a time. So you've slowed your breathing, you've come back into the present moment, and now you're going to reframe the issue of whatever you were stressed out about. Think, is it true? I don't know if you've ever studied Byron Katie's work, but Byron Katie has she has a whole system. It's called The Work. There again, like I've shared this with clients for years and years because I think it's so effective. And the first question that she has people ask themselves when they're feeling anxious and stressed out is this really true? Like if you're feeling like your neighbor is throwing trash in your yard on purpose, like, is that really true? So how do you find out? You can either ask them, you can set up a camera, maybe it's the raccoon from the trash can. You know what I mean? Like there could be a number of things happening, but if you get it into your mind that your neighbor is throwing trash in your yard, you're going to start to hate your neighbor and you're going to start to act out in a way that is very unhealthy for you. But is it true? So the second question in the process is, how can you prove to me that it's true? 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt, prove it to me. This is normally where the questioning ends. Because normally most of the stress that we feel is only in our head. It's actually not true per se, but we think it is. So now we go on a fact-finding mission, we have a conversation, we do our due diligence, and typically we find out that that's actually not true. So the third question is like, who would I be without that thought? Like, if I could never think that negative thought again, who would I be? What would my life be like? And then you create a turnaround thought, which is kind of like the opposite and a positive thing. But I actually did this, I actually did that little questioning series with my mom. So when I was growing up, my mom still can't drive on the highway. She would never fly. She's agoraphobic. She can't go in public very much. And so like, she didn't come to my college graduation. She wasn't there when my kids were born. She never saw their bedroom. She didn't come to my wedding, like, because she was afraid. She was afraid that she would get on a plane and not that the plane would crash. That was not the fear. The fear was she would have an anxiety attack on the plane and people would look at her and judge her. And that kept her from ever doing anything for the first 68 years of her life. Yeah. People are like, Carolyn, like, how did you turn out like this? But so 68, she finally gets on a plane and flies from Cleveland to New Hampshire, where I was living. This is after her parents passed away. See, like when her parents passed away, there was this like lifting of stress and anxiety from her, and she got bold. She got better. So she got on the plane, and then she didn't die, and she made a friend, and it was actually fun. And oh my gosh, you know, but so there again, like the stress that she created in her own mind for all of those decades prior to that wasn't real. Is it real? Prove to me it's real. Get on the freaking plane, right? So anyhow, when she was there, we did this, and she said, I forget what her initial thing was, but like, is it true? Is it true that I'm going to have an anxiety attack on the plane? And is it true that I can't fly? Is it true that I can't drive on the highway? And who would I, we went through the process. And we got to the point where it was like, who would you be without this thought? And something like clicked into her mind, and she like grabbed my journal and ran off into the other room. And when she came back, she had written this whole new story about the woman that she would be if she wasn't so afraid, and how she would travel internationally, and she would go here and she would go there, and she would be free, right? And that was such an empowering story. And so since then, she's flown to Seattle twice. She's, you know what I mean? Like, she's actually started to get out and do more things and got a job for the first time. Like, who would you be without that thought? So I really encourage people to work on the reframing of the issue and reframing of the thoughts, because so much of our self-sabotage comes from our own mind. No one else is doing it to us. So the last part of this is to practice gratitude. And like I said, there are so many things to be grateful for. Sometimes we lose sight of that. Sometimes it's fun to make what I call an asset list. So like, what are all of the things that you have? Like, and I mean, be superficial about it. Like, I have a really nice car. I have this. I have all these clothes. I have running water. I have, like, what do you have that you're so grateful for? And you create this asset list, and you're like, wow, I really have a lot. I have a lot to be grateful for. Sometimes it's better to write it down instead of just think about it, because when it's physically in front of you, it's much more powerful, right? So practicing gratitude, because when we're filled with the feeling of joy and the feeling of being enough, even, we can't feel like we're not enough. We can't feel scared when we know that we're safe. We can only feel one thing at a time, and it comes from our thoughts. So, you know, developing a series of affirmations often helps. I know it's helped me in the past when I've gone through, you know, really intense, stressful situations. And it's that insistence that things are going to be okay. you have to insist that they're going to be okay somehow. Sometimes you don't need to know how, but you're going to figure it out. And you're so sure of that eventual outcome that you can afford to wait for it without anxiety. It's all going to be okay. Can't tell you how. That's the faith and trust. So that is, in a nutshell, what I like to introduce to people when we're thinking about stress. It is a lot, right? That's a lot of information from the biology and the physiological stress responses to what we can do to manage stress, to how we actually perceive our daily lives. There are so many ways that we can be happy. And I really hope that some of this information helps you to do that. Now I'm going to drink water.
So I want to share a stress moment. I just started dating this guy, and I wonder, like, what you were saying is, like, I wonder who I would be if I wasn't this person. So what happened is that I called him and he was sleeping, and just like during the day, and I'm thinking, like, well, it's past 10 o'clock in the morning before lunch. Like, why are you sleeping? I mean, his schedule is all over the place. But I woke him up and he's like, I'm sleeping, and he hung up on me. And I was livid. I was just like, wait a minute, what? Why are you hanging up on me? That is so unacceptable. And then I just got stressed out. I was just like, if you think you can hang up on me like that, that means you can hang up on me anytime. It's like, I am not. And I was sending him texts while he was sleeping, and it was just like, it blew up. And like, if I wouldn't just stay calm and relaxed and just like act like it wasn't a big deal, but I can't do that. My emotions start kicking in, and it's like, because in my past experience, it's like whenever a man hung up on me, it showed disrespect, and it showed that he thinks he can do that again if I don't mention it. So like, there were so many different ways I could have gone about it. But I was just like, I was texting him, and then it just turned out to be a huge just drama for the whole day. It's just like, when he finally woke up, we had this conversation, and like, he was trying to get his point across, I was trying to get my point across, and we were just like, not like, okay, I'm not gonna wake you up, but don't you dare hang up on me. But he, it's just like, if I would have like been a different person, if I would have thought of it a different way, how do you handle stress like that? When you want somebody to act a certain way,
right? And here it is. It's the battle for control, right? And it's like, you can't control me, and you can't control me, right? So you guys are like, don't tell me what to do. Yeah. Yeah, things don't really work out that way. But let me ask you, like, why, like, if he didn't want to be woken up, why was his phone on?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, okay, so
and then we made an agreement. I'm like, turn off your phone then, if you don't want to take calls, turn it off.
Right. And the other thing too is that, like, just understand that it's our job to, when people show us who they are, it is our job to listen and believe them. So if this is his MO, right? If he is a person who is like, I'm sleeping. Okay, so like, that has nothing to do with you, actually. That has everything to do with him. And isn't it interesting what he chose to show you about himself? So you can catalog that away and understand that that is one of his personality traits. And then you can decide whether or not that's acceptable to you or not. Right. But it's just up to you. Like, his actions don't actually reflect you or who you are. He's not doing that. I was
taking it as that
to you.
Yeah, I'm like, right. Okay, you think you can disrespect me that way? I'm about woman power. It's like, don't
Right.
disrespect me. That's the worst thing you can do if you want to continue dating me. Hanging out on me, showing any form of disrespect, that is just, you're out, dude. But how do you tell them that? How do you tell them that you don't do that?
So that's great. That's a great question, because that is a conversation that needs to be approached in a very calm and rational way. Men do not respond well to highly emotional expressions of anger. Do you know what I mean? They're like, ah!
Yeah.
They respond to logic and reasoning. So when you're going to have a conversation with him about that, so like, okay, so it just happened, right? So he picked up the phone, told you he was sleeping, and hung up the phone. Yeah. And then you were like, then you told yourself this whole story about how he disrespected you, and then you pull up all the memories from the past, and so you're back there in the past, and then you're worried about the future, and like, you're not being present, right? So if you can just stay present, be like, okay, so he's showing me that this is how he responds. It's not particularly respectful in my world. Like, it's actually unacceptable in my world. Great. So now you're clear on that. And that's all you need for the moment, because then when you have the conversation with him, you can tell him very, very clearly that his actions before made you feel like he was disrespecting you. And that, because men don't want to make you feel bad. Men want to actually make you happy. Like, men do. They want to, I
don't feel like it's competition, because I'm a strong woman. I'm always, I don't need you. This is
a huge dilemma for a lot of us, is that, yeah, when you're a strong woman, when you are like the alpha of the relationship, like, so in every working relationship, there's a masculine energy and a feminine energy. You cannot have two masculine energy people in a relationship, because then there's no one to receive. So like, the masculine energy person wants to create, wants to give, wants to provide, is the doer. But then there has to be a feminine energy there to receive and to create and to nurture. And that's the reciprocity in healthy relationships. If you have two masculine people, neither one of them are willing to accept. And it's a battle for control all of the time. It doesn't usually work out very well. You can't also have two feminine people in a relationship either, because then everyone's waiting for the other person to do something, and they always feel let down, because like, why wouldn't you do this? You know what I mean? Like, there's no giver doer. There's just the takers.
Right.
So in a healthy relationship, this is very interesting. I've actually thought about this a lot, because obviously I am a masculine energy person too. Yeah. And when you start a relationship, this is my experience. When you start a relationship with someone, how you meet and the first like couple interactions that you have sets the tone for the entire thing.
Yeah.
So if you're the one who asked him out, you're always going to be the one who's taking initiative. If he asked you out, you said yes, you realize that you're setting the tone, and he's going to want to take the lead in things, which can be fine.
Yeah.
For God's sakes, like, we don't have to do everything. Yeah. But you have to actually have that sort of agreement, or at least acknowledge it in your own mind. Like, you need to let him take the lead sometimes. Like, that's how he's wired.
Okay.
And if that's not going to work, that's not going to work. There's plenty of fish in the sea. You know what I'm saying? But, yeah, power struggles are rough, because the struggle for control comes from fear, the fear of not being in control, the fear of the unknown, right? The fear of trusting someone else. Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah, it is intense. It's only been like 3 months, but I just feel like, and he's very, he's the male, obviously. He's the one that's like taking initiative, and I appreciate that. I can accept that. I can honor that. But just this one, I guess it does. I don't know it until it happens. I don't know my pet peeve until it occurs. If he's a half hour, then I'm pissed. But I don't know that I'm pissed until it happens. And I think that's where my masculine energy comes in. And it's like, this is not acceptable. And I guess I have to just like stay in the moment and hold that anger until you talk to him, or
reframe it before he gets there. Like, so if he's late, is he always late?
no, it was just an example. But
Okay.
I mean, it's just never, it's like I'm always hanging out waiting. And then so like if I do my own thing and then he's like, okay, I'm coming over, and I'm like, oh well, I'm in Manhattan Beach hanging out, you should have told me this so we could coordinate it. But it's always like we're missing each other, we're trying to meet up, and it's like we're not communicating
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big communication issue, you know, and there again, like these are boundaries that you have every right to discuss with him. Like, this is what makes me feel good. Like, this is what makes me feel safe. This is what makes me feel like respected. This is what makes me feel happy, is when we can actually make a plan. You know what I mean? Some people aren't planners and they're just like flying by the seat of their pants.
Yeah.
I am not one of
I'm
those
a planner. I need
Yes.
yeah, you and I are so like, I can just tell. And it's like, yeah, I'm trying to do my thing. He's trying to do his thing, but I just don't want to get lost in the moment where I lose me as a person, where he's making all the decisions and I'm like just hanging out, which is
But
rude.
he that could never happen, right? I mean, you would never let that happen. Like, that is an impossibility. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. Check that off the list.
Okay. But I don't want to turn into a nag either. It's like, you have to fit these rules to keep me, you know. I have a list of things that I need him to understand.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Those
Really?
are healthy boundaries, as long as you can communicate them in a kind and truthful way. Like, that's the whole thing too. Like, I've had this on and off again relationship with this guy for 3 years now. And he has been one of my biggest teachers. We're like so volatile sometimes. And when it's good, it's really good. When it's bad, it's really bad. And that has been one of my biggest teaching moments personally, that relationship, because it's like, I have to look and see what is my place in that. Like, how am I acting inappropriately to a certain extent, right? So like, when I'm choosing my words, sometimes they're a little bit harsh, right? And so before I say anything, I have to think to myself, is it true? And is it kind? Because sometimes you can be telling the truth, but you're not nice.
Yes.
And sometimes you can just be feeding people like kind words that aren't true. That's not fair either. So is it true and is it kind? So we have to like manage our words and communication. But also it's like, I don't know about you, but sometimes I find that I'm judging him.
Yeah, me too.
But I do the same thing. So I'm giving him a hard time for something that I do too.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not fair.
Okay.
So I have to manage that. In my mind, when I get upset, when I get triggered, I have to think to myself, do I do the same thing? And sometimes I do. And then I can't be mad, because like, I have to realize that I am angry at myself, not him.
Yeah.
His actions are a reflection of me, of what I don't like about myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a tough one to swallow.
That's a tough one, huh? Jeez. And just like this whole dating thing, it's I mean, I'm like divorced. I have a child. I've gone through the been there, done that marriage thing. And so the whole trying to get married isn't a priority to me. But when I meet somebody and he seems to be very present, he's there, he's here, he's always wanting to be involved. It's like, I don't know how to handle that now, because it's like, what, you really like me genuinely as a person? What? You know, it's all brand new, you know, and it's fun. So I'm always looking for ways to like try to control my power and how I want to manage the relationship, and if it's healthy. Is me being in this relationship with him healthy? Is it good for me? Are we going to move forward? It's a lot of fun learning, but like I was encountering a stressful moment. And I was just like, oh hell no, you're not hanging on.
Yeah. And you know, it's like, and what you were just describing too is so much future tripping, right? It's like, how am I going to manage this relationship? How is this going to work? How am I going to control? How? And it's like, one day at a time, sister. One day at a time.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can only take it one day at a time. You can be really clear on your boundaries. You can speak your truth. You can be true and kind. And that's about it. And then if it comes to a time where it's not healthy or where you have to end it, you can't wait too long. Like I know that I've lingered in relationships too long, and then it just hurts more and it gets really nasty. So it's
so nasty. Yeah.
Relationships, I think, are like, that is the best way to learn. Being in relationship with others is the best learning tool for ourselves, right? Because everyone is our mirror, right?
Yeah.
So like you and I are similar, and there's going to be things that you see in me and I see in you that we both appreciate because we both appreciate it in ourselves and each other. And then there's going to be things that you're like, oh God, I can't stand when she does that. Or like, oh, I wonder why that happens. Like, that's so irritating or whatever. But that's because you have it too. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just the parts of us that other people are showing to us. So that's the whole point of being in relationship, is self-growth, you know? And
like
so
that.
Enjoy the ride, because it's all about you.
I'm scared too, because I don't want to get heartbroken.
There's the future trip again.
Yeah, I know, you're right. You're right. That's why I stress too, because it's like, all right, for every high, there's going to be a low in a roller coaster, and it's like, I don't want that low to come.
But it has to. Like, that's being human. Like, we live in the third dimension, which is black, white, night, day, up, down, good, bad. Like, that's how we experience the world as humans. And you cannot have the good without having the bad. Like, when it's bad, you have to just like relish it for a second, because it's temporary. And you know you're going to come back. Like, humans, we have been so taught to like operate in this very like small wavelength of emotions, right? But joy is up here. Like, sadness is down, despair is also down here. Like, but we want to operate right in here in the safe zone.
Yeah.
But that means that you can't experience the joy and the ecstasy of life.
That's true.
You have to go both directions and just know that everything is temporary. Everything's temporary. You're not going to stay down there forever. People are worried that they won't come back.
Yeah.
They're depressed and they won't come back ever. But that's not true.
Yeah.
I mean, there's clinical depression. Like, I'm not putting that, I'm not saying that isn't a real thing. But on a day-to-day, like, I got my heart broken, or, like my kid is graduating, or I'm becoming a mom, or whatever. Like, there's the highs and the lows of everyday life, and don't be afraid. Just stay with it and know that it's just here in the present, and just keep coming back, babe. Keep coming back to the present.
Thank you. I needed to hear that.
Good.
So we're about at the end of the hour. If anybody wants to chime in or have any questions, comments, or concerns, just go ahead and type that in. If you guys want Hannah, did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. This has been a really incredible talk. It's been so useful. I keep thinking about something that happened on Thursday, where I got so angry at a member of my team. And now I think about it, I just feel so embarrassed, because it wasn't really my nature, but sometimes the feelings are so overwhelming. And I felt I had to articulate how I was feeling. But now I look back on it, I think, oh no, I can't believe this happened. So it's just so difficult when you're in the moment to actually say, okay, I need to hold this call whilst I take a breath. It's just, okay, now that hearing this is great, but it's just when you're in that moment, it's just having to remember that, okay, this is not the end of the world. Things will, so it's just. That's my challenge.
It's the whole thing of like when people used to tell you to count to 10, like count to 10, like take a breath.
Isn't that helpful? I like
And so, you know, like when you're mad at a team member too, like you can just tell them, I'm gonna count to 10 right now.
Yeah, I like that.
And then legitimately count to 10, right? And just take a deep breath. And is it true and is it kind before it comes out of your mouth? You know what I mean? It takes so much practice. Oh my God, Hannah, like it's a lifetime of practice of learning to communicate in a healthy way and not let our immediate emotions like.
Yeah. It's, I don't know, because we're women, but I mean, I love talking about this because it helps me remind myself, and that's a good guideline. Is it true and is it kind? Is it true? Is it kind? All right, I'm going to count to 10.
Mm-hmm. While I count to 10, I'm going to contemplate, is it true and is it kind? What is about to come out of my mouth? And if not, you just recreate the words like with that guideline. Like, I'm going to say something right now, but it's going to be true and it's going to be kind. So how am I going to re-engineer that? You know,
Re-engineer, exactly. Because what I say on my mind, what's on my mind, I say it. Sometimes I have to bring it back a notch. My ghetto, you know, Flint, Michigan, Emory comes out and it's just like, what the fuck are you doing hanging up on me? You know, I gotta bring it back a little.
Mm-hmm.
Is it true? But is it kind? I love that. I think that's going to be like my motto from now on.
Yay! It's a good mantra. It is a good mantra to have. It solves. It prevents a lot of arguments. Prevents arguments.
Yeah.
Doesn't change the world, but prevents arguments.
One more question.
Mm-hmm.
I have a counterpart. He's been with the organization maybe a year and a half. And I just see him as competition and I can't stop comparing myself to him, which I know is wrong. I just think if there's going to be a promotion, it's likely to go to him because he fits the bill, he looks the part, the way he presents. So I want to be able to get past that. But I know that I cannot compare myself to him. But when I interact with him, it's there. Past memories come up where I've offered support when he first started and you shoved it in my face. So I need to just go to him with fresh eyes and be, yeah, I just find it hard.
How did you get past that, Carolyn?
Well, I mean, the first question that I would have, right, is about that promotion, right? Is that true? Like, will he actually be chosen above you? And the second question is, how can you prove that that's true? Yeah. Where did you go? There you are. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, who can you ask within the higher organizational ranks that, I mean, and then the next thing is, like I said, when people show us who they are, like when he shows you who he is through his actions, it is your job to simply believe him. Like it is your job to just look at him as him. It is not you. It's not about you. It's never about us. It's just him acting out. And everybody has, you know, everyone's doing the best with what they can. And a lot of people were not taught very good manners. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I second that.
But yeah, as long as you know, like the other thing, one of the other mantras that I've always had that has helped me through a lot is, as long as I stand in my truth, no harm will come to me. Okay. And that is legit. As long as I stand in my truth, no harm can come to me.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. If you guys want a recording, a copy of this recording, just send me an email because this is a really good
yes,
yeah, I'll send it to you.
That would be great.
Yeah, and of course I'll when you get it, and I'll post it up too on my site. I'm actually going to send out a newsletter, I think next week, and put both of the workshops on there for people to see.
I'll do it today. I know I lagged the last time, but I'll make sure it goes out today so we can post it on your newsletter.
Well, it was nice to meet you, Hannah. Thanks for sharing.
Oh, thank you, Carolyn. Do you have a website or, I don't know?
Yep, and it's just my
Instagram?
name. It's carolynmaul.com, CAROLYN, Maul, MAUL.com. And that's my email address too, carolyn@carolynmaul.com. Yeah, thanks,
Okay.
Marie. Emery's just posted it there too. Yeah, so if you need anything, let me know. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Insta, I'm on all the things. So unless it's causing me stress, and then I check out for a little bit. So
Smart. Well, thank you,
All I
ladies.
can say is thank you so much. And I've enjoyed this talk. Also, the future self talk, perfect. It's wonderful. I love your energy. I like how you communicate and present. Fantastic.
Thank you, Hannah. I appreciate
So
that.
beautiful. Yeah.
Right on.
Right
Well, thank
on.
you, ladies. Stay in touch.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.